Effective Training Systems, Strategies, and Practices. This chapter will enable you to describe the purpose of a needs analysis, the steps in conducting a needs analysis, explain what a competency is, differentiate between proactive and reactive needs analysis, describe the relationship between needs analysis and the design and evaluation of training, and list the 4 contaminations of a criterion. Within the open system, the training process is initiated by a triggering event, often referred to as a performance gap. This gap must be analyzed to see if it is a gap that should be addressed through training. After the performance gap is identified, it's important to understand that not all performance gaps can and should be addressed with a training intervention. For the gaps that do require a training intervention, the analysis phase training needs output is the input for the design phase. Asking if a performance discrepancy is worth fixing may seem superfluous. There are factors, however, that must be considered to determine if analysis is necessary. For this discussion, though, we will accept that the performance discrepancy exists and it is, in fact, worth fixing. Since this is the case, we must determine what kind of performance it is. As simple as it may sound, it's actually a complex situation. The simple model depicted on the slide represents a complex process that requires analysis and insight to determine how best to alleviate the deficiency. The corrective actions that are listed as remedies must also undergo analysis to determine their appropriateness based on capabilities and ensuring that other problems don't emerge from the solution. As an example of determining a solution, if the performance discrepancy exists and it's worth fixing, we may find out that it was stemming from an issue of having the right knowledge, skills, and attitudes, KSA. Remember, there are many organizational factors that go into the determination of the appropriate type of intervention. This example is provided as a means to demonstrate how organizationally complex the analysis process may have to be depending on the overall complexity of the performance discrepancy. So, given the level of criticality a performance discrepancy may be associated with, even the amount of analysis needs to be evaluated and balanced with the needs for a quick fix. Instructional designers need information that comes from the analysis phase. So where does that data come from? The data sources listed in slides 5 through 8 indicate the depth of root causes which any given performance discrepancy may stem from. Although the sources of data are listed separately in these slides, there are relationships between the sources that may need to be examined. For instance, if the operating procedures are well written and the employees have no grievance, the root cause of the performance may be in the relationship between written procedures and actual procedures. This list of data sources may or may not cover all the possibilities. The analysis process requires creativity and insight to ensure that the material is analyzed to create a strong foundation for the training and non-training interventions. As you may have noticed, conducting an analysis is similar to conducting an investigation. The person is a detective that must follow leads to gather the data to be analyzed and developed into information. Deciding who to ask is determined by the type of data you are looking for. For example, if you want information about the history of mission goals and objectives, the person should ask whoever wrote and put the mission goals and objectives in place. The key to asking questions is stay neutral and not understand an answer that is not understood. In other words, do not jump to a predetermined understanding or hear what you want to hear. Clarifying questions can help uncover the actual nature of the working environment. The analyst must know what type of work performance is being analyzed. This will help to limit the scope of analysis and focus the effort on the relevant areas. Although one might argue that all performance is operational, the relevant point to slides 12 and 13 is that if the analysis is within an operational arena, then the sources for obtaining data should be job-related and pertinent to the operational performance of the people who are responsible for the task. Performance gaps are worker-oriented, so it's a matter of common sense to make data gathering worker-oriented as well. Surveys and questionnaires are quick ways to gain input from the workers. They can be manipulated to ask relevant questions, and in many cases this allows the survey person to feel more comfortable and provide more truthful answers if these surveys and questionnaires are anonymous. One method of job analysis is to gather 5 component levels of the job. The job title, duties, tasks, subtasks, and required KSAs help document specific expectations for each job. This record can also be used to capture actual worker-provided activities that can then be compared to the specific expectations and determine if there are discrepancies between the two. As an example, we can consider the task analysis as a specific duty for the instructional designer. The tasks to be completed are list the tasks, subtasks, and KSA. The subtask would be observe behavior, select verb, and record behavior for each task, subtask, and KSA. The instructional designer would also need to list the KSAs required to complete the task and subtask of the duty for the job. It's important to differentiate the type of data from 2 different analysis approaches. A task-oriented approach and a worker-oriented approach can both give you valuable information, but as this slide shows, the level of specificity is different between the two. A performance gap can also reside in a person, so to conduct a person analysis is also a matter of common sense. There are many sources of data that can help you complete a person analysis on an individual or a team of individuals to help determine the root cause. Proficiency tests must be focused on job-related qualities of the person being analyzed. One extremely important indicator of a root cause is often the attitude. That includes morale, motivation, and job satisfaction of employees. Attitude surveys can be used to capture these dimensions. It's also important to know the audience. Some devised situations or assessments can cause more problems than would otherwise have existed. Coaching, management by objective, or work planning are based on relationships that can provide information about performance. Are these techniques working? Can they be improved? Will they leverage performance? There are relationships in every organization, and how well the relationships are working can indicate how well people are performing. Let's move on to criterion contamination. The analysis criteria define the standards upon which decisions can be made. If the criteria does not match true performance, then the analysis may suffer what we call criterion contamination. The analysis process can entail each of the three levels of analysis or any combination thereof to determine performance discrepancy and the root causes of these discrepancies. The output of the analysis process is the determination of training needs and non-training needs. If there's a need for training, the training need output then becomes the input for the design process, which is the next step.